Alex, late redensas, and we're just gonna briefly show you what we got here on two different sizes. We got 3 gallons and we got 7 gallons. And what we want to show is the value that these 3 gallons have. We just shifted a bunch of them up to 7 gallons ourselves, and as soon as they're rooted in, they'll be making grade for that 7 gallon size. So they're actually a really good one to talk up to customers if they really want that extra value right now. They can get these in, they can get them installed on jobs, and they would actually be almost as big as our 7 gallons. Our 7 gallons are a little bit bigger, and sometimes landscapers or sometimes architects, they just call for that gallon size, which we understand. That's why we grow both. So, but just want to keep that in mind about the value that the 3 gallons are giving you right now. There's 1,500 of those on availability, and there's 400 of the 7 gallons on availability right now. Next up, we got some more Ilex, the Royal family. Everybody's pretty well known about what the Royal family program is. It's the male and the female put together in the container. So it's a self-pollinating plant that we call it. And then they're actually really nice. Everybody knows it. It's pretty much, you don't really have to talk too much about it to people about the program, but it's a really good setup. So that way you don't have to worry about the male and the female and how many you got for quantity. You just kind of plant them and go. It's good for that retail market just because you don't have to worry about the right number. But also for growing, when you're selling these off to customers, a lot of people are afraid of overwintering them because they always lose. There's a few tricks. One of the tricks is they want to be left alone. You can't mix them up with a lot of different varieties when you're overwintering them. So they got to be in their own house or their own space. So you just want to, if you want to let your customers know that, don't be afraid of overwintering. They are easier than what you think to overwinter holly. Just because of that little trick there. You just keep them low. There's other tricks too, but that one's a pretty easy one that a lot of people probably already do know that. But just keep that in mind. There's in this 3 gallon size, you can see the value on there. They're the bodies on them is 18, but there's 6,700 of these on availability. Next up, we got some more holly. We're definitely getting on all these fall interest stuff right now, with all these berries and stuff like that. And this one's Blue Maid. But you do want to remember though that those berries are only going to be on that body, right? Because they're not gonna set flower on new wood. There's mostly on that older wood is where they're setting that flower. And then after the flower is already set, then we get a flush of growth, and then there's never really a flower on that flush of growth. So that's why I put on there a little note there that the berries are only going to be on the body of the plant. It's never going to be on the tips, for us anyway, just because we do get such a phenomenal growth on our holly out here. And our holly are definitely well known because our growing area right here in Huron is actually makes just some of the better looking holly. Because our hollies do have the best color. They have because of our nutritional program. It's actually geared towards the holly more than anything else, just to get that green for that. Because holly are kind of they're always known as a slower growing plant to begin with, but so that's why we ramp up the nutritional program just for them, so that way we can get these growths and get these flush and get this is green for them. So that is something. But getting back to Blue Maids, they are fast growing, kind of like your blueprints, and so I don't know so if people are kind of comparing them, and they always say that my blueprints and my blue princess aren't growing the same rate. Well, they're not. You definitely have to go to a Blue Maid and a blueprint to get that same rate of growth, and that's why we keep this one in line. The foliage is a little bit different. A little, I think it's a little bit of a softer of a texture. Myself, it's a little more glossier on the new growth, but that's neither here nor there. But there's over these 3 gallons are really nice for the value. There's 3,100 of these on availability. Next up, we got some more Ilex. This one's Red Beauty, and this one's actually a really good one. because of the berry set that this one gets. This one actually it's more of a central leader upright, so that's why we choose to trim it into that cone shape, because it's such naturally central leader. That's what it actually has. It doesn't grow as fast as some of the other ones, but that's why you'll get these berries almost all the way to the edges of the limbs, which is it gives it a great look. It gives it a great texture, a great feel, and also that the berries on there. We had a vendor stop by and that supplies some other plants from us, but he grows red beauty as well, and he told me that they're self-pollinating. I tried looking that up. I tried verifying that. You can't find that anywhere, and I've never taken a flower apart to see what all the parts and pieces are inside that flower. I'll definitely have to keep a closer eye on myself on that. But that is probably the reason why red beauty does berry so much. It's a self-pollinator, and that is something I never paid attention to this past fall when we had that supplier come out there and say that tidbit of information to me. So, but like I said, if you're looking up online, you won't see anything that everybody will say you need a male and a female. But I'm going to have to start disagreeing with that information, because it does vary so much compared to everything else, and that's probably one of the reasons why. It is definitely a pickier one, that's for sure. If you ever go over there and look at these ones versus the other ones, it's definitely some pickier leaves there, but they're a great plant, Then there's 400 of these on availability. And we have 7s also on those that are loaded up too. So going into the different route for right now is the junipers. We're putting these on because they once again the colors on these are starting to show up really, really well for the fall time. You get this little bit of cooler weather, and the colors pop up even more. And first up we got that gold lace juniper. This one is a great color right now with that gold. One thing you want to keep in mind though is for that growing aspect is that we got to do a lot of sprays, and that's how we got to get that tip blight away. Is just a lot of sprays, and we got to give it lots of love. Otherwise, you definitely won't. You're definitely going to get tip blight if you don't treat this plant with love. Definitely. So if you got customers out there just complaining about that tip blight, just tell them, you're not loving your plants enough. That's the thing. But definitely the color. We got 450 of these on availability.
There'll be more, so probably next week.
Then there's more in the pipeline. Next up, we got the gray owl juniper. Another great one for color with those hints of blues in there. We put these in a little bit of a pot and pot situation just to get that extra space on them to help with that tip blight, and that's something your customers could do. Just space them apart a little bit further apart from one another, just to kind of help them dry out a little bit better. One thing to know is we do water these with that copper system every single night, just to help us. But we do spray them too, so we're actually putting a lot of stuff on these all the time just to kind of help out. But just touching on that, there's about 1,000 of these on availability on these gray owls in that 3-gallon container. Next up on the 3-gallon side, we got sergeants. Those ones are pretty good. You guys have been going through these quite a bit. A lot of junipers are probably needed out there right now for jobs and stuff like that. And this one's such a low grower, it's actually a pretty phenomenal one of how tough this one is. And if you had to rate them, Blue Star is definitely the best for that tip blight because it's just a different animal. But we have also this one, the Sargenta, is actually a pretty good one too for against tip blight. So if customers are having problems with that, I definitely lean them towards this one. Just because of their availability with that warding off that disease. The drought tolerance is excellent on all these junipers. I mean, we put that on every single one just because yeah, that's what they're all known for. They're known for taking tough areas. They're taking you can put them in rock gardens, all that kind of stuff, just because of their abilities to grow in those natural drier areas. Once again, we do put this one in that pot and pot situation, just to kind of give it that extra air movement around the plant, just to kind of help them dry them out. And you guys are definitely doing a great job selling these ones, so hats off to you guys. But there's 490 of these left with these. So I think there's one more juniper sea green. These ones are these are definitely something to keep in mind with the junipers. But one thing I did find on these a couple weeks ago is the cool season mites are kind of coming out now. So we're spraying for those. So you want to keep that in mind with your customers. That's something that you don't generally pay attention to. You pay attention to the two-spotted spider mites and everything else, and hydrangeas and arborvitaes. But the cool season mites are coming out this time of the year, and I did find some that had quite a bit on there, and we're getting those sprayed right off. And they're actually hard to see any effect to the mite on the plant, because what it does is it just makes that new growth look a little paler of a green, and that's just, and I mean, everybody's natural thinking is when they're walking by, they're just saying, oh, they're putting on some new growth, but actually that's that mite coming in, attacking that little bit of new growth, and it's coming in on it, and so you just want to be aware of that, or let customers know that even if the ones that are sitting on the lot right now, just to kind of help them, maybe kind of give them a little bit tidbit of information, maybe they'll listen to you a little bit more about junipers. But they got this is one of the landscape architect's favorite juniper. They know it, they love it, they know what to expect out of it. So they slam them in all the time. They all around Cedar Point's new areas. Those are all, they got sea greens all over the place over there.
With that, we'll get started. First up is the Calycanthus Aphrodite. We've talked about this plant before. This is actually the new crop. This is what they look like. You can see they're nice full plants. The other thing that's nice about with them coming on late in the year like this, they've also got the flower buds. You can see this one's got at least two. A lot of the terminals do have smaller buds in, so that's another plus for this plant at this point. I guess big thing to talk about right now, you're getting into fall and everyone thinks that there's not much color. So a lot of the plants that we're showing have color today, so keep that in mind. This is typically the time of year when we see the Caryopteris bloom. This one's Dark Night. We did take cuttings off this 3 weeks ago. We felt we should go through and do a light trim, so it kind of set the flowering back a little bit. Dark Night's probably the middle of the road as far as the ones in flower, but all the terminals, if you look close, you can see have flower buds. This is one of the few plants that are true blue, so almost all the Caryopteris are going to have this blue or shades of blue. So we've got pictures of all four of them. Next one up, I believe, is Petite. This is the one that's going to, if someone needs a blue flowering plant in a smaller area, this is more dwarf. It's not going to be as spreading as the other Caryopteris. Nice full type plant. It is no longer in the proven winner series of plants, so keep that in mind if someone asks. That's why they're in a black pot. Sapphire Surf is the one that's out the fullest in flower. This is a first edition style plant. It's similar to Dark Night in the way it grows. It's a little more open, a little larger. Nice blue color, as you can see here. And then last but not least would be the Sunshine Blue. This is a second one in this series. This is touted as being a little hardier than the original Sunshine. This one will not be as prolific in blue flowers as the other plants. It's more known for its foliage with that yellow color. So this gives you a nice bright spot. It is similar to Petite as far as stature and height, but it is a little more sprawling. It's just going to be a lot lower plant. This is a very sharp looking plant, and in a week or two, I'll probably throw another picture up so you can see what it looks like when you get the blue against that yellow. Another plant for this time of year, hibiscus, perennial hibiscus. This is just an overall shot of one of the blocks that we have. A 3 weeks ago, we felt they were a little leggy, so we did go in and trim them. We also PGR these plants to keep them shorter. The breeding that comes out nowadays is geared towards keeping these plants short, not in the old days where you had a 5 to 6 foot hibiscus. So they're naturally shorter. They also have a tendency to branch better, as you can see here. All the terminals do have some flower buds in there. They're probably 7 to 10 days out from showing color, so this would be the ideal time to start moving them, getting them on the lots, and when they start to pop, a lot of these flowers you're going to find are as big as what your hand is, so in that 6 to 8 inch, 10 inch across range. This is just an update on Bobo, 3 gallons in here at Maine. You see the nice full plants are just starting to flower. This is a fresh picture that David took yesterday. So this is a supplemental crop that we ran in through here at Maine. So nice supply of those as well. Had David throw a couple pictures up of the city line and the everlasting hydrangeas. It was to give you a rough idea what these plants look like. The other thing is to serve as a reminder on the early order programs. We need you guys to make sure you get your orders in, get the entry work done. Some of these plants we are not going to put into heat if they're not sold. We go through an awful lot of effort, spend a lot of money on heat, etc., to get these plants up and looking good, and then they sit there and we don't get them all sold. So we're trying to minimize those expenses. The other thing that we have to look at as far as getting plants up earlier in the spring, we only have X number of square feet of heated area where we can get this stuff up and running. If you think back on some of the other conversations we've had with hydrangea, it does take 12 weeks of heat. So typically the heat's turned up about mid-February to the end of February to get these in the flower. This is one of the nicer crops that we've had. Typically, we take cuttings on these in July. These are not remontant, so they don't rebloom. We have to be real careful what we do. If we were to go in there and trim these right now, you'd have a very minimal number of flowers next spring. So it's key in the production cycle, once we take those cuttings, to keep them short so that when we go in the spring, it's more of a florist grade crop per se than a nursery crop. So once again, anything in the EOP programs, get your orders in so we can look at this. Come the end of September, we go through and evaluate, and then we'll start moving these plants into heat. David told me everyone keeps asking about summer crush. This is what the current crop of 3 gallons is looking like. As you can see, they're coming out of the trim. They are growing rather fast at this point. We're looking at this plant probably being just green with very small buds in probably 2 weeks. They break real nice, and by that time they also should be well rooted. The next picture is just an overall picture of the house. So the other thing with summer crush is the amount of demand that we've seen. We do keep increasing the numbers, so we should have a better supply of that plant going into next year as well. Along with Caryopteris and some other fall crops, and they would take an overall view of the Hypericum. Hypericum is a good one to mix in with mums for anyone buying mums for fall color. We talked about the Hypericum earlier. You can sell them both with the yellow flower, which you still have some yellow flowers, but as you can look at the plant here, it's up on the chair. You're starting to see the berries color up. So this is something to keep in mind. This is really what these plants are designed to do. It's another add-in for fall color. So look at your varieties, and we grow reds and oranges and some yellows, and there's a white. There's actually a lime green one in there as well. So it's just another nice thing to put in for fall color. Most everyone thinks once you hit September, there's a whole lot of color out there, but you can see we got quite a bit. Drove by this one. This is Flying Kiss. We've had this plant a couple years. It's a new one that came through Altman Plants. They have it in a series. As you can see, this is a climber. It's one of the claims to fame. If you look at the foliage, it's very clean. Almost all the climbers that we grow will not known for having clean foliage, or typically there's a lot of black spot on them. Zephyr and Drulin is the pink one that we grow. It is fragrant. This one is fragrant as well. Zephyr and Drulin's a light pink, where this is more of a dark pink. But this has been a very good performing plant over the last 2 years that we've had it. Had David throw in some pictures of raspberries. Normally we just talk about these in the spring. He's also got some pictures of blueberries in here. Raspberries, these liners were came in this spring, early spring in March, and then the other, your heritage and your blackberries that we grow, the common ones typically come in midsummer. All these plants are really nice and big. This would be a good time to get them in the ground and get them established going into spring, and that give you a really good crop of fruit next year.